And we are alive and live.
Namaste, Katya. Yes,
Namaste.
we are live.
Yes, you are alive, Kausthub. Hello, how are you?
So far, so good.
So far, so good. Are you looking forward to our interview today?
Uh, yes, although a little bit anxious, and because I know what kind of dangerous questions you are going to ask and provoke, so I'm a little bit nervous, but I think I can manage.
Yes, of course you can manage. And I think the questions are a question of all of us. Regarding today, as you know, we are going to talk about physical intimacy. So, hello guys, please let us know if you hear us, if you see us. Press a heart or a like. We already have one heart for this fantastic topic. Thank you very much. So we are starting. Hello, Rani. We are starting this interview today with Dr. Kausthub Desikachar and myself, Katja Ujcic. Dr. Kausthub Desikachar is our famous mentor, yoga teacher, spiritual mentor, which is our mentor, our teacher. Also, we are students of Kausthub, and many of you who you don't know, we had these interviews already started from Corona time in March. Already did a lot of interviews. You can check on my Facebook down here or on Kausthub's YouTube. YouTube, yes, you already publish it on. And I am Katja Ujcic. I'm a yoga therapist, also a student of Kausthub Desikachar, an art therapist and therapist for gifted. So, and today we are going to talk about the sacred power of intimacy beyond desire. So it's a long-awaited interview, Kausthub, that it was slowly building up to the point of today, and we are addressing actually the almost main topic in human life, which is on one side very sacred, and on the other side very exposed. Yeah, it's very dualistic on both sides, very intense. It is so desirable at the same time, but so overrated. It's manipulation, but at the same time, the only logical reason, let's say, for living, yeah, reproduction. And we are going to talk about physical intimacy beyond desire. But before we enter into this very provocative and dangerous labyrinth, we would ask, please, Kausthub, to chant for us, so we are protected, enlightened, and all these nice things for this interview. Yes.
I hope so. I hope so. Before I chant, I would like to say that uh, I am not really a complete expert in this topic because I'm not one of those sexual therapists or physical intimacy coach or things like that. And I just want to share my experience or the knowledge or the wisdom I've gained from my experience of life, as well as the experiences many of my wonderful students have shared about their personal life throughout the last 20 years that I've been teaching. And I really am grateful for their sharing because that has made me much more wiser about these topics. And it's only through these experiences, both personal as well as shared experiences, that students have shared with me. They've shared their stories that I'm talking about it. In no way that I'm supposed to be an expert in this topic. So if something people don't agree with or they find something different from what they believe in, they have every right to feel so because I'm not the ultimate expert in this topic or in any topic for that matter. So with that, what do you call
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer, we
Yes.
begin. I want to do a health chant because sexuality is also connected a lot with health, and appropriate sexuality can bring us back a lot of health, but inappropriate sexuality can create a lot of illness. So I do a chant that is called Arogya Mantra, that is talking about appropriate health and in a way where we are rejecting or reducing the toxins that create inappropriate health. Om Pranapanavyanodanasamanameshodhyantam Jyotiraham Viraja Vipapma Bhuya Sagaswaha Om Vangmanaschakshushrotrajikvaghraнаreto Buddhya Koti Sankalpame Shodhyantan Jyotiraham Viraja Vipapma Bhuya Sagaswaha Om Shirah Pani Pada Parshva Prishthodara Jangha Shishno Pasthapaya Vomi Shodhyantan Jyotiraham Viraja Vipapma Bhuya Sagaswaha Om Twacharmamagam Sarudhiramedhosthimajjame Shodhyantan Jyotiraham Viraja Vipapma Bhuya Sagaswaha Om Shabdasparsharoparasagandhami Shodhyantam Jyotiraham Viraja Vipapma Bhuya Sagaswaha Om Prithivyapastejo Vayurakashami Shodhyantan Jyotiraham Viraja Vipapma Bhuya Sagaswaha Om Annamaya Pranamaya Manomaya Vijnanamaya Anandamayami Shodhyantan Jyotiraham Viraja Vipapma Bhuya Sagaswaha Om Vivitjay Swaha Om Kashotkaya Swaha Om Uttishtha Purusha Hare Lohita Pingalakshi Dehi Dehi Dadapaitame Shodhyantan Jyotiraham Viraja Vipapma Bhoya Sagaswaha Ogaswaha Namaste.
Namaste. And thank you. So today we are going to talk about physical intimacy, guys. So if you have any questions, please let us know, because this is why we want to make it more open. We want to make it more that we communicate, so you can put any questions if you have any. I presume you have a lot, so be brave. So, Kaustub, there are so many controversies that we can connect to physical intimacy. So, from, let's say, freedom, pleasure, joy, connection, to rigidity, secrecy, taboo, and traumas. But if we look in the nature, we see it's very simple. For example, you have a beautiful feather here and there, or you have a powerful bite, and then you fight for your mate, and this is it, you got the mate. So, what did humanity do with the physical intimacy that became so complicated?
Well, this is a very complicated question, as you say, because there are many, many dimensions to this. Like you say, first of all, we are not really animals, so we can't have a fist fight and then decide who gets to mate with who. This is not how our society is structured. However, we were close to that in the past, and we, I think, complicated it because of a few things. And the first thing is that we started looking at people as our property. I think that is the first problem.
Mm-hmm.
We address people like we say, this is my wife, this is my husband, this is my girlfriend, this is my boyfriend, uh, this is my partner. In some way, we have become more like a possessive personality. And so we treat them like property. And that is one of the complications, because then it's almost like we feel entitled to have
Mm-hmm.
this kind of a sexual relationship with our partner, because they are our property and we have ownership over that person. And when we come from that kind of an energy, obviously the relationship is not balanced. It becomes a little bit hierarchical. So that is one feeling I have of what made things more complicated. The second thing, which I think is very important, which I feel is what made it very complicated, is also that in most of the cultures, I have to say, in most of the cultures, not everyone,
Mm-hmm.
sexuality is practiced under the bigger umbrella of religion.
Mm-hmm.
Because in many, many countries and societies, and even in many of Western countries,
Mm-hmm.
like yourselves, um, it wasn't even in the 1940s and 50s, sexuality was always under the umbrella of a religious contract called marriage. And that also complicates things very much, because marriage is more about a contract of an agreement between two people. It need not be dependent on what is most important for a sexual relationship. And especially in many societies, marriages were arranged. It was
Mm-hmm.
not even the choice of the man or the woman whether they wanted to be with that particular person. And I'm not talking only about Asian cultures. It was happening even in Europe early in the
Yes.
1900s as well. So it's very new, this concept that, people are having the freedom to choose who they want. Which brings in the other question about what is called consensual physical relationship, which is, I think, a very important thing. Consent is an important platform, which I think is very, very essential. But in my feeling, consent is not enough. Consent is essential and necessary, but more important than consent is a connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the most complicated thing, because most human beings, we are disconnected already from ourselves. So it's very complicated to be connected to somebody else. And also, it's possible that we feel connection with somebody for some moment of time, and then we don't feel that connection for another moment of time. And then what happens? And this is the second dimension of, I think, the challenge in the concept of physical intimacy, which is the concept of being practiced under a boundary of, let's say, religion or of social definitions of structure or something like that. And there is also a third aspect, which I think, which is that very important, especially for women, is that in many cases, a sexual relationship or a physical relationship has consequences. The woman can become pregnant. The man may not be pregnant, but the woman can become pregnant. And the moment the woman becomes pregnant, then what do we do about the child? Who takes care of the child? And now there is debate about whether there should be even a child or no child, whether there should be an abortion or their child should be kept. So when those kind of complications happen, it becomes even more complicated because sometimes fathers run away or they didn't want to have, sometimes mother did not want to have, sometimes both the father and the mother did not want to have because they were probably drunk or under the influence of drugs or something like that. They were in a party or something like that, and then they get involved in a sexual relationship, and this creates such a consequence. And that is also one part where things become very, very complicated. And the last dimension I would say is that there's a battle between each of us, at least most of us, between the animal part and the more elevated part. An animal part, like for example, if you throw food to a dog, it will just eat. It will not worry whether who is throwing the food. It just will eat. If it's hungry, it's a natural instinct. Whereas we human beings, we have to be a little bit more sophisticated than that. Just because there is a sensual object in front of us or a sensual man or a woman in front of us, we should not just become like an animal and just succumb to it. We must be a little bit more elevated. That's why I like the title Beyond Desire, because desire is not always the platform for a sexual relationship or a physical relationship, because that can create a lot of problems, because that desire can be just a momentary desire. And I think that is another complication, because we have an inner battle, because in some way we are neither fully an animal, but there is still an animal part of us. We are not animals, but there is an animal part of us, and there is the conflict between the two. And sometimes the animal side wins. And that, I think these are the four essential things that I can think about of why physical relationships become much, much more complicated. There may be many more, but this is what comes to my mind right away. I don't know if our audiences are going to agree with that, but this is what I have shared from my experiences of life and students sharing their stories.
Yes, great. I agree completely. So, if you, one of you, my dear listeners, if you think it's not like that, we would like to hear your comments. Yes, it's very, very complicated. But on one side, yeah, it's very important. It's all over the world, all the time, in history, in all the locations in the earth. Yeah, it looks like sometimes it's even more important than love, isn't it?
That's a debatable, I would say, statement. But I can understand what you're saying. I would say that both love and physical intimacy are somehow mutually nourishing, mutually dependent. But I totally agree with you that it is a very, very fundamental aspect of human life, or any form of life. Any form of life has been given the tool of reproduction, and therefore this becomes very, very essential to acknowledge and respect. That's why I feel that the only way that we can refrain from sexuality is when we dedicate our life to something that is higher. That's why you see the monks who are dedicated to their dharma, or sages dedicated to God, or in the Christianity there are monks who are dedicated to Jesus or Maria. Only when you are able to have a connection with a really much more stronger power than the innate mechanism can you have an asexual life. Otherwise, it's quite natural to engage in sexuality for most of us, and it's very, very fundamental, and I think also very important. I think it's very, very important because, like I said, we need to have focus on the aspect called connection. And in my experience, in my what do you call growing up a process, I realized that sexuality is so important to reconnect with your partner so that the relationship becomes more and more stronger. And it's often a sign that somehow the relationship is crumbling when sexual interaction between the couple disappears, when all other circumstances are normal. I don't mean that if somebody gets a stroke and is unable to engage in sexual relationship, or if somebody has an accident or some disease happens, and that's different. But if all things are normal and something is not clicking here, then the connection has somehow distanced itself.
Yes, but this is so, as I know also from my clients, this is so common now. And then the people are searching connection to other people, yeah, with other people, and including physical intimacy. So,
And
yeah,
we must not, and we must understand that because
yeah.
we all need a connection. We, I believe that we are not made complete. We need a connection to complete ourselves.
Yes.
That's why, that's why this connection is very, very essential in a partnership. And perhaps if you have had a meaningful partnership for, let's say, 20, 30 years of your life, and then your partner dies or disappears, then maybe you don't need to have that thing. Maybe you complete that feeling of incompleteness through some, maybe like a dog or an animal or the forest or something like that. But if you don't have that feeling, if you don't have that experience, it's very often very difficult. And that's why it's very natural for people to start searching elsewhere when they feel that incompleteness. And that is the challenge, because society and religion and boundaries are restricting people from this search, because they are made to feel guilty, they are made to feel ashamed. And it starts very, very, very young. If you think about it, when we grow up after a certain age, parents, family members start making us feel ashamed of our genital organs. When a child is 5, 6 years old and walking around naked in the house, people say, shame, shame, you wear your clothes, shame, shame, wear your clothes, shame, shame, you're showing this, you're showing that. So, in a certain way, psychologically, we are kind of creating an unnecessary shame in a person by linking the genital organs to be an organ of shame. So it becomes easier when you grow up to make somebody feel ashamed of their sexuality, whether it's their choice of sexuality, like homosexuality or bisexuality or things like that, or feeling guilty about searching for another partner, etc. It's very easy to make people feel shame because it's a very, very fundamental programming that has been created in human minds. It's very difficult to come out of such deep programming, and that is one of the burdens that we carry that makes also life very complicated. And this is very complicated because on the one hand it's very, very essential, but on the other hand it's something that is taboo. It
Yes.
can't be like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that it does not go together. It's, yeah. So you mentioned the traumas. So why are there so many traumas regarding physical intimacy and intercourse?
There's many dimensions, I feel. First of all, I think the topic is about power. Uh, Many people engage in sexuality because of power. And I'm not saying only man exerting power on women. I've also have worked with a lot of women students who have also shared their stories, and they have shared that they have used sexuality for power as well.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
one of the problems that this happens is because there's always this association, because what do you do with the person you're engaging in this relationship with? If there is some ulterior motive behind, that's going to leave traumatic impressions. And this is not only about something like violence or rape in sexuality, but also manipulation and other things in sexuality, betrayal, lies, and things like that, power dynamics. That is one part of it. But there's another more serious part of it, which I've realized, which is that a sexual relationship, you keep calling it physical intimacy, but I don't believe it is just physical intimacy. I also believe that it is energetic intimacy.
mm-hmm,
When we are having a sexual relationship with somebody,
mm-hmm.
we are also exchanging energy at a very deep
Yes.
conscious level, not only at a conscious level, but at a very, very deep subconscious level. And so what happens is sometimes we exchange traumatic energies from one to the other.
Uh-huh. Okay.
That is very, very dangerous, because sometimes people don't know what traumas they have. So they may give that energy of that trauma that they have, but they don't know, to somebody else. And this can create lots and lots of complications, which may take years and years and years of undoing to
Mm-hmm.
somehow reverse. So that's one of the reasons why I told you in my interview with you last time that
Yes.
I choose monogamy, because then you are at least having only one exchange of energy and not multiple exchanges of energy, because then it becomes too complicated, because then you don't know from who you have picked up what
Yes.
kind of illness,
Exactly. So
of energy, and that's why it becomes depleting.
mhm. So we should be really very careful regarding choosing a bedtime partner, because the energy I think I suspect it's even more exchangeable in sexual intercourse. Yeah.
Personally, I would not recommend anyone to just choose a, as you very nicely put it, bedtime partner on a very casual basis.
Yeah.
uh, like you just go to like a restaurant or a bar or somebody, and you just pick up somebody because you're feeling one way and the other person is also feeling
Desire.
one
Yeah.
way, and then you just shake hands and enjoy yourself, and the next day you shake hands again and say bye bye. I would not really recommend it, because you really
Okay.
don't know what kind of energy somebody is going to carry, and what you are going to get and what you are going to give the other person. It works both ways. It
Hmm.
works both ways.
Yeah.
And that is why it is quite important to respect that it's not just a physical relationship, it's something much, much more powerful. It's an energetic dimension as well. And that's why in the Vedic language, they talk about this concept with the word brahmacharya, which means movement from the divine in our heart. So it has to be, that's why I talked about connection.
Yes.
You should really feel a deep connection with somebody if you want to engage in a sexual relationship. And I have to say that the mind and the senses can play games,
Mm-hmm.
to make you believe that you have this kind of uh,
Connection.
a connection, that
Yes.
you have this kind of a connection. So that's why the deep connection is very important. And to come to that point, I said I choose monogamy, but it doesn't mean that that's the only form. In history, we have seen many people, even great sages, having multiple partners, like Yajnavalkya having
Yes.
Gargi, uh, Maitreyi, etc. We have examples of this, but the important thing is they shared a deep, long term connection and they were very honest about it. There was no secrets and they
Mm-hmm.
were clean and clear about it. This thing about monogamy is a choice. It's not necessarily what is natural, it's a choice. And
Mm-hmm.
again, monogamy has been insisted by some religions, and that's why there's a lot of associated ideas. For example, when I was once traveling in Singapore, I met one woman from Arabia, in the and she was so beautiful. And I asked her whether I could photograph her, and she said okay. And I photographed her, and then I just talked to her where she's from and what she's doing and things like that. And she was explaining to me that she had come from Dubai and she was here with her husband and his other wives. So there
Mm-hmm.
were four women with this man who were coming, and she said that it worked for them because they all knew and they accepted, and this was part of their religious, what do you call, acceptance, that it was
Mm-hmm.
okay. There was no secret. Everybody knew each of the other ladies, and they were all accepting. And they had, of course, they make some rules. So that's why I say what's important is a connection and honesty and integrity in these kind of situations. And we must, of course, also respect social, cultural, religious beliefs that each person may have and not insist our view on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's very, very important because that can also become complicated.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, is there any recommendations that you will say to us on how to approach physical intimacy? So, one is that you don't just listen to desire, yeah, you also connect. Is there any other recommendation?
I think it's quite challenging because in modern society, many people start their sexual experiences when they are very young, when they are 13, 14 years old, they are starting already. And this can be quite dangerous because they are doing it from the place of hormones.
Yeah.
They're doing it only from the hormones and nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
This can be quite dangerous. My feeling is basically what I told in the last interview is in this kind of relationship, I would think it's most appropriate if we really know truly who we are
Mm-hmm.
first, and have only this kind of relationship with somebody we deeply connect with, somebody whose energy is mostly positive. I cannot say completely positive because
Mm-hmm.
such a person doesn't exist. And even more important is to engage in that relationship only when the energy is positive, because even each of us, we can have moments where we are down, moments where we are up. And sometimes when we are really heavy and down, we mostly connect with the negative energies. That is what is pulling us down. And in such kind of moments, if we are going to engage in a sexual or sexual relationship, it's possible that we may give that negativity to somebody else. So, in respect of the other person, we also make sure that this only is happening in a context where the energy is positive. And there are many methods to create such positive energies between the partners. And I don't really want to go around explaining those kinds of things, but I'm sure many people are aware of, making things very positive. And all that is coming only when we remove the kleshas out of it. It should not come from a place of only desire. Although desire is important, you cannot really, if you don't desire somebody, it becomes difficult. But more
Of
than
course.
desire, it must not come from the place of ego, like power or possession.
Yeah.
It must not come from egoistic, like this is my partner, so I want to do this, and this is this, and blah, blah, blah. It has to come from a much more heart place.
Mm-hmm.
It has to come from a feeling of care, of love, of mutual connection, and of mutual happiness.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem why I think back to the earlier concept is oftentimes physical relationship is often one person wanting to be happy and not the other. And that's where even if somebody consents, they are not really connected. This happens a
Yeah.
lot in, let's say, in marriages where the man or the woman, they both consent, but they're not necessarily enjoying the
Mm-hmm.
experience. They're just somewhere else. The woman is thinking about somebody else, maybe the man is thinking about somebody else, but then they are together with each other in the physical space, and that is not really a connection. That is total disconnection. So that's also another thing that is important, that you are really present with that person for mutual happiness, for mutual expansion. You should feel expansive at the end of such a relationship, not really like heavy or contracted, or it's not like a job done, take, okay, I've
Yeah.
done it.
Like a duty. Yeah.
Like a
Yeah.
duty.
Yeah, exactly. So, dear friends, if you have any question for Kaustubh, please do put the questions here down. So I think he's so much waiting for a question of you.
Yes, of course, as if your questions are not dangerous enough. I need
Yes,
more dangerous questions from our
but
participants. Thank you.
yeah, so yeah, thank you. So, but my question to you, dear friends, for all of you is, Kausto mentioned nice moments on how to approach to each other and make a good moments between a man and a woman, a partner and a partner. So please let us know how you do it to create a very nice moment. this is this we want to know, guys. All over the world, we have, from Sarah, the Malar Billy from Malaysia. We have Katya. Hi, Katya. Suniva, Shaila, Ja, Rebecca, Claire from New Zealand. I think, Claire, you are, yeah. Supriya, Marilyn Monroe, we have here. Erica, Rani. So please let us know about the beautiful moments you experience. So, yes, exactly. So, another fantastic question for you, Kaustubh. So, what is going on with the energy when women and men are physical intimacy? So, can you explain a little bit more?
Okay, I try my best. I think
Yeah.
when we are exchanging a relationship, there's energy that is exchanged as well. There is a give and a take. There is a giving and there is a receiving. It's like
Okay.
every form of energy, like whether it's breathing, for example, you have to inhale
Mm-hmm.
and you have to
Mm-hmm.
exhale. It's the same. So in a relationship, there's a giving and a receiving. I don't say that it's a man giving and the woman receiving, like biologists will say, because they are talking about the sperm that the man is giving to the woman. This is this is both ways. The
Uh-huh.
man,
Okay.
the man or the woman, whoever is in the relationship, it could be man and man, or woman and woman, or man and woman, whatever combination you want to keep.
Mm-hmm.
It's important that we realize that there is an exchange of energy, and energy is always connected to knowledge, jnana.
Mm-hmm.
Knowledge includes things like our memory, things like our impressions, things like our patterns, and all those kind of things that we carry. And therefore, when we have an exchange in this way, at a deep subconscious level, this is also exchanged. That's why
Mm-hmm.
if there is a healthy relationship between a couple or a partner, I don't want to call a marriage, but a couple or a partner,
Okay.
in whatever form, man, man, woman, woman, man, woman, whatever form, in the healthy relationship, obviously, there will be a healthy sexual exchange. And therefore, one knows the other because there's the exchange of knowledge as well that's happening at a subconscious level. The partners start to know what the other one feels without verbal exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Because that energetic exchange also carries knowledge and wisdom from generations. And that is on the healthy side. However, if it's happening in an unhealthy side, the energy will connect with the negative vasanas, the negative impressions, the negative memories, the toxic um, impressions or
Mm-hmm.
patterns, and that is getting exchanged. So that is the danger as well. So energetic exchange cannot be removed from a physical exchange. And that is why I keep saying that it's not appropriate to call it physical intimacy only when there
Yeah.
is so much of energetic dimension happening.
Mm-hmm. So is there any, let's say, connection to chakras also, maybe?
Of course,
Mm-hmm.
course, it's very strongly connected to the lower chakras, and especially the second chakra, which is connected with the element of water. Water is the carrier of knowledge. Water
Mm-hmm.
is the carrier of life. Water is the carrier of energy. That's why it's so important that we respect the sexuality in a very appropriate way. That's why we must honor and respect healthy sexuality, which is so controversial, like you said, because many religions define sexuality only between a man and a woman, and that is not natural for many people who are homosexuals or lesbians, bisexual, some people even asexual.
Yeah.
We have to respect that. Imagine if you have to put somebody who is by nature not heterosexual into a heterosexual relationship, how can there be a healthy dynamic in that sexual relationship? It would be very, very difficult. And that is where, as a society, we need to start becoming more accepting of people's natural tendencies. The tricky part is it's very often difficult to know whether it's natural or whether it's mind that is playing games, and that
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm. So Erica is asking, what do you think about humor in a sexual relationship?
I think humor is not only limited to sexual relationship. I think humor is so important for any relationship. I'm not just talking about sexuality between the couple, but if even humor is very important nourisher of a healthy marriage or of a healthy long-term relationship, and not only between a romantic couple but also between friends, between family members like brother, sister. We need humor in life. If we don't have humor in life, I think we have no life.
Yes. Can you experience Erica life without humor? Oh my gosh. Our interview would be so much different.
Erica is a very funny lady, so she has humor.
Oh, great, Erica. Okay. I meet you someday. So Malarvili, she said monogamy intimacy is the best. And then she also said, you said Malarvili, first thing to having good intimacy is respect. And then all the rest falls in place.
Respect is a consequence of connection, I feel. So connection is the more
Yeah.
important of this. All that will follow. I think all that will follow. Respect will follow. You cannot have respect without connection.
And Rebecca is also writing. So if we have to heal ourselves before intimacy, so it's really very important we are not passing on our traumas to a partner. For some of us, this could be a lifetime work. So if we are not complete unless we have this kind of intimate relationship, this sounds a bit sad for me, as it may never be the right time for intimacy. Yeah.
So great question and from so great person. I'm
And so I'm sorry, Kausthub, and
I'm not.
Isabella is and Isabella is also, it's a similar question, but she's asking how to clean the bad energy transmit during sexuality, or maybe also after sexuality. So how we clean ourselves of bad energy, and then if we have sexuality, how to clean ourselves after sexuality. Yeah?
Well, there are two different questions. Let's try to take one by one. First of all,
Okay.
I say that we need to know ourselves, meaning we need to be ourselves. We need to be natural. So when we are young, when we are a teenager, 21, 22, we should just be ourselves, not try to be somebody else. That's what I mean. And that's what, as a society, we start to become, because the ego comes in, or the society wants us to be this or be that, or we want to be perceived as this or as that. So that's what I am trying to say, that we need to know ourselves, we need to be ourselves. And the other part of the question is, we don't need to be completely clean, because there will be never a time where we can be completely clean, because we carry a lot of garbage from generations. But what I'm trying to say, that's what I tried to say in the answer to the earlier question, that we engage in a sexual relationship or in an intimate relationship only when there is the connection to our positive, our expansive side, because then the prana is connected more to our positives, and then we are not exchanging so much negative. We are exchanging the fluidities between the positives. Whereas
Mhm.
if we are under alcohol or drugs, or if we are depressed and whatever, and we are negative or we are angry, sometimes people have this term called angry sex. It's not necessarily the best time, because that is connecting our energy with all our negatives, and then the transmission of energies between the negative to the negative. So that's the only way that we need to change, is when we engage in such kind of a relationship, we create an expansive ambience. We take some time to make deep connections. We take time to create a pleasant moment where there is not only like a consent, but also like a deep connection. Then things start to flow positively. That is one thing.
Okay.
The other thing, the other question which Isabel has asked, I think it's very, very important. Um, and in some ways, it's more harder for women to clean than for men, because the woman receives the sperm, and that carries a lot of energy, and it's deposited in the woman's body. um, Women need much more time, and of course there are mantras and chants that are cleansing, that they can listen to, being
Mhm.
in water like salt water, or bath, or go to the sea and things like that, or forest that can take away these dark energies, can be very helpful. And in that time when they are cleaning themselves, which may take a few days or a few weeks, not to engage in further sexual activity, especially with somebody else with dark energy, is very, very important. So it's like, while cleaning the garbage, don't add more garbage. Let the garbage can become empty first before you add more. So it's the same. And for the man, it's the same. For man also, it takes time sometimes when we receive the negative energies. It takes time. So again, there are procedures which are there to clean these kind of energies, involving some chants, involving some practices. Mudras and bandhas are one of the ways in which we are also cleaning these kind of negative energies. Moving into water, salt water, is very, very helpful. So it is there for both man and woman to consider this. But I have to say that unfortunately, the biology of the woman makes it much more challenging for her. And that is why the woman has
Mhm.
to be much more careful in these kind of circumstances. And that's why it's much more traumatic for women as well in these kind of scenarios. And that is why we need to be very respectful of this as well.
Mhm. Of course. Okay. Is there any, let's say, difference between experience, physical intimacy for women than men? Is there any
I,
difference in, yeah,
I would never be able to answer this question, Katya, because I have never yet been a woman. So I don't know how it is. It's only a woman who can answer it. I'm not so sure if I can make any comparison because I have not been a woman and a man to experience it. So I don't know if I would like to answer that, if I'm even capable of answering that question. Whether I
yeah,
like it or not, that's different. And I just don't want to give some theoretical
yeah,
answer that I've read here or read there. As I told in the beginning, I only want to talk from my experience personally, or the experience that I have learned from discussing with my students who have been very generous in sharing such kind of details of their lives as well. I don't,
mhm,
I don't know. I don't know if there is the, I don't know. But as I know, as I explained earlier, biologically, the woman and the
yeah,
man are differently built. So of course there
yeah.
will be a different experience.
Yes, this is why I asked, like in some the similar approach as you said before. Yeah, that the it's yeah,
Correct. But that's biology is only about in the physical dimension. Energy does not have gender.
yeah.
The
So
prana
as you
is not having this kind of gender specific. The energy is the same.
as you said, it's like men and women both, they are giving and receiving. Yeah, because sometimes we read about this tantra yoga and all this, and they have special rituals also before the intercourse. They have special rituals, let's say during the tantra. I was just reading, so so all these, let's say, tools that they have. So they approached the physical intimacy in terms of energy, yeah, not just like
I,
reproduction or desire,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm not a specialist of tantra at all, but what I feel they are trying to create is what I told you earlier on, a connection.
Yeah.
I think they want to create a connection and take the sexual act to a higher space.
Hmm.
Even though the sexual activity is coming from the lower chakra, you
Yeah.
must understand that that there is polarity in the chakras. The Swadisthana chakra has the polarity with the Agnya Chakra, a higher chakra. So it has to come from a higher place, even though the action is from a lower chakra.
Yeah.
So that's why sexuality must not only be based on like desire only, then we are no different from an animal. We need to act in this from a higher place, but not complicate it too much because then it
Hmm.
becomes too intellectual.
Hmm.
We need to feel, we need to make that connection,
Hmm.
we need to have that deep connection with that person with whom we want to engage and then engage at that moment. Otherwise, it's just a mundane activity like an animal is doing.
Like
That's it.
recreation, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So can you explain a little bit more about the connection between Swadhisthana and Agnya Chakra? Like some sort of maybe examples that you have?
Very simple example is the Agnya Chakra is connected with the perception of and all the sensory functions. So we need all the sensory functions in order to get excited, to get woken up, to say we need to look, we need to smell, we need to taste. Everything is connected to the Agnya chakra, and this is very essential for the sexual activity to start. Otherwise, it doesn't start. And At the same time, the Agnya Chakra is about the third eye, which is
Yeah.
a deeper vision. We are not just seeing the external beauty of the person, we are seeing the internal beauty. And that is what is the biggest, let's say, stimulant of our sexual energy.
Yeah.
It's you, because, I mean, think about it. I'm sure you have kissed many handsome boys, but most of the time when you kiss, you are closing your eyes, right?
Yes, I do remember that. Yeah.
But your third eye is open, because what you need to see is not the handsomeness of the man, but the beauty in the heart. And it's the same with the woman. We should not just worry about how physically attractive somebody is, because physical beauty keeps changing. And that's why Agnya Chakra is about looking at the inner beauty of the person and engaging from that place. You know,
Mhm. Beautiful.
if physical beauty was the only most important things, people like me, ugly people like me, will not have a chance.
Come on.
Because there is inner beauty involved, we still stand a chance, and that is very, very important.
There's so much inner beauty in you, Kausthub.
I
And
hope
we
so.
don't judge the outer beauty, it's not on this interview on anyone. So yeah, you agree, dear followers. Yeah. So let's say the last question goes to, so we can somehow use also, let's say use, yeah, the sexual energy of second chakra to more balanced Agnya chakra, like
Of course.
for, yeah.
Of course, it's also a circle. It's also this will nourish that, that will nourish this. That's
Okay.
why I told you, the more you are with your partner healthily, in a healthy manner, more sexually or with a partner health in a healthy manner, the more you will see the partner. And the
Hmm.
more you see the partner, the more you will be sexually active with the partner.
Wow.
It's
Very good.
it's mutually connected.
It's therapy for couples in one sentence.
If you say so, but I'm not a couples counselor as well.
So Malarvili, hi again. She's saying that actual physical intimacy is some form of meditation. Could be, yes. Very good point.
It's very similar, because the word is pratyaya mind. That mind has to, the fluid mind has to be engaged. And the fluid mind is the mind that is also in the state of a healthy sexual relationship. It's also the same mind that is in the state of meditation. It's also the same mind that is in the state of dream. The mind is
Hmm.
fluid, beyond boundaries, beyond judgments, beyond anything. That's why the word is pratyaya, very deep mind. And the word pratyaya also has another meaning, which is knowledge.
Wow.
That's why I kept telling you that there is knowledge connected with energy.
Hmm.
So, yeah, you could say that it is kind of like an active form of meditation, because, in a way, you lose yourself in your partner loses yourself in you. So the sense of I disappears.
Hmm.
That way, you are with yourself, with the partner.
Great. Fantastic. So very, very deep ending that we have today. So, Kaustop, thank you very much for all the explanations. I think we were very, very good in beautifully explain, as Sarah said. So, Sarah, if you agree that we were
Oh,
decent and nice, please let us know.
Sarah
Uh,
has improved.
if you approve, Sarah, would be nice to hear from you. Thank you very much, dear friends. Thank you very much, Kaustop. Please let us know how you experienced this interview. Many of you are writing to me later on, also to Kaustop later on. We have all the good comments. Great. So let us know about maybe the topic that you want to listen that Kaustop is that Kausthub is sharing with us his knowledge and energy. And please stay tuned. In 2 weeks, we are back with you. So, but for the end, Kausthub, you are, of course, invited to chant for us a fantastic chant for this interview, to end this interview.
Yeah. So I will chant one part of a chant that is used for cleansing. A little earlier, Isabel had asked a question about how to clean oneself. One of the chants is called the Pavamana Suktam, which can be used for
Great.
cleansing as well. I'll do one part of it because it's a
Yeah.
little long chant, so I'll do one part of it.
Great. Thank you.
Om Pavamana Suvarjanaha Pavitrin Vicharshani Yah Pota Sapunatuma Punantu Madeva Janaha Punantu Manavodhiya Punantu Vishwa Ayavaha Jata Veda Pavitravat Pavitrina Punahima Shokrena Devadidyat Agne Kratva Kratogumranu Yatte Pavitramarchishe Agne Vitatamantara Brahmatena Punimahe Obabhyam Deva Savitaha Pavitrena Savina Cha Edam Brahma Punimahe Vaishvadevi Punati Devyagat Yasyai Bhakvistanuvo Veta Prashtha Taya Madanta Sadhamadyesho Vayagyasyama Patayorayinam Vaishvararo Rashmibhirma Punato Vata Pranini Shiromayo Bho Dyava Prithvi Payasa Payobhe Ratavari Yagniye Ma Punitam Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste, friends.
Namaste.